It's not about the ad that we run that attracts business to us or friends to us. It's the works that we do. People come to us for who we are, not just because you were number 3 on the super duper unbelievable list of the year, right? Because no one sits back and says, you know, honey, I don't think we could work with number 4 because there's number 3 out there. Like, nobody thinks like that.
Hey everybody, Ryan Hodge here from the Rise Up podcast, realty firm, and Ryan Hodge Coaching and Consulting. And we are continually looking to bring you some value inside of the real estate industry and beyond with people that will bring you different perspectives, different ways of doing things, and ultimately what is going to allow you to really, truly rise up in your business and in your life. And I am so honored and blessed today to welcome Matthew Ferrara into the studio, not of course in person, but you know, we're here and we're going to have a discussion, and I'm a huge fan. Matthew is a philosopher. He is a writer. He's a speaker, trainer, mentor, and he has had epic stories and results inside of the real estate industry and beyond. So Matthew, welcome.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be with you and to have this conversation. I've been following you equally as much, and it's just wonderful that we have people like you doing these kinds of contributions to our business, but also just to our lives. So thank you for having me, but also for doing you as you have been.
Well, I appreciate that. And I want to share a quick story because I think it's important to, not only talk about a little bit you and your background, but I recall the first time that I was introduced to you, and it's a video that I used in multiple trainings. You were speaking for Coldwell Banker, I believe, and it was on stage with one of the other, great real estate trainers of our generation and beyond, Mike Ferry. And it was a debate format. It was highly entertaining, and it really talked to the effect of, what you can be doing now. And you're talking about things like technology and social media and, the disruption that was happening. Where at the time I recall very, very clearly, and it was right when I got into real estate, that, you can be a top producer if you spend a fortune in marketing or you make 200 cold calls a day. And those things do work. And I think that was the beautiful part of that conversation and debate. But you shared, so many different things that people could be doing. And, years later, look at where we're at now in the real estate industry and how many people are having exceptional success by doing exactly what you were talking about then.
I remember that. That actually was a very fun event. I believe we used a boxing match model.
Yes,
I believe I still have the robe, the boxing robe, actually. What I loved about that particular event, and frankly, the first 12 years of my career doing this is actually my 30th year in the business. It's hard to imagine, but what I love about those sort of early years, as I recall, is that, the mastery of the essentials in the business really are important. So, the ability to share new ways in which we could grow our business, whether it was cold calls or, social networking, whatever those things were, they helped me understand and also to help perhaps share some best practices in being effective with productivity. But, one of the things that, of course, I learned, and this also affected the shift that I made about halfway through my career, is that productivity is only part of the equation, right? So I know many people who master the productivity tools, but they may not gain traction. And then what I started to really learn is that the tool set, the equation of productivity has to also have the other side of the equation, which is the mindset to be excited to do it, to be passionate about selling, to be passionate about making new relationships, making a difference in the lives of customers and clients. So when I think about that particular event, it really was very close to this moment in my career where I also was making a shift from not just what to do, but why we do it, and what the benefit personally, but also to our clients and our communities and the world at large of us doing it. matters. And so, I kind of think of, in a lot of ways, where we are today in the real estate industry, it just parallels also my personal journey as well. People in the initial part of the last 30 years, we've just been obsessed with production. And now I think we're actually becoming concerned and focused in a good way, focused more than concerned on what it all means. What does it mean to be a great sales professional? What does it mean to be a broker in a community? What does it mean to be a real estate industry as a whole? And all of those questions actually trickle back to, will I make a prospecting call today? But for much different reasons, not because I want to, dial 200 times a day, but because every call is really about making a difference, not just filling my wallet, but filling other people's buckets. And when you're doing it for that reason, now the tools actually start to shine, because I'm grateful for the tools, but they're the bridge for my passion. It's not the other way around.
When you started to make that switch, did you get pushback, in the industry? Because you've spoken for the biggest crowds in real estate. It's phenomenal, your resume, so to speak. But did you get pushback as you started to make that switch from, just straight productivity to, this new mindset, this shift? Like, tell me about that.
So two things kind of happened. On one hand, I would say there was a little pushback in terms of people like predictability and expectation. And so when people would call and say, what are you talking about these days? I'd say, well, these are some of the new areas. It was hard for them to think like, wow, how did you get there? And what makes you credible in those areas? And so some people would call and say, do you want to do another program on LinkedIn? And for goodness sakes, I didn't even know LinkedIn was still around, or, something like that. Sure. Right. On the other hand, I have to say, I'm truly blessed that many of my clients said, go for it. They said, you know what, we're watching the progression of our agents and of the consumer and ourselves, and we're glad you're growing as well. So if you are suddenly talking about what it means to bring value to the table, what it means to be passionate in your work, what it means to have values before you have a value proposition, those kinds of things, then they would say to me, your timing is just right. So I'll tell you a very quick story. I had a client in Michigan, and I said, listen, I have developed a new program about inner growth paralleling our outer growth, our professional growth and our personal growth. I said, I would love to do it for our upcoming event. And here's my ask. If you let me do this topic, which would be new in our experience together, we've done many events together in the past. If anything goes wrong, I promise to come back and I'll do anything from my usual, cadre of topics, and I'll make it up to you. And what's even more, I won't charge you for either event. And they said to me, first of all, don't worry about the money. We have no fear that whatever you'll do is not going to be worth it. But more importantly, they said, we're thrilled to be the place where you're going to launch this new idea, this new topic, this new whatever. And in fact, after I did it, I had lunch with them and I said, do you have any suggestions? And they gave me such wonderful input that it made it even better. So I would say that in change, there will be some people who don't get it. Some people who are just, not excited for you to change. And you know what? That's okay. It's all right. You can part ways and still be friends and be friendly about it. But on the other hand, there will be people who say, let's go. I want to take you on that journey. I want to help you go on that journey. And I tell you, the people who stepped forward and said, we want more of that, Matthew Ferrara. So keep it coming, keep it going. We're so thrilled about that. That to me was a special gift, because it allowed me to continue to grow and to be able to bring new benefits, but at the same time, not worry about, if I make a change, everything could get broken. Sometimes change is about breaking things, but with a purpose that people are delighted to have you do.
I love it. It's an interesting paradigm that I see with, agents and what they're observing all the time, and what is being, almost force fed on a daily basis through, IG and Facebook and everything, but what they should be doing. And it's not to say that anything, that is out there right now won't work, but it is that inner work, in my perspective, that, that's where you start feeling good about what you're doing. And as you feel good about what you're doing, then the results start to come. You talked about, that inner work. Is that your perspective on it as well? Or maybe explain that inner work dynamic, because I think the industry's crying for more of this right now. And I know that you can give so much more of it to this.
So there's two aspects of it. One is, I think at a very fundamental level, we have to love what we're doing in order to have the energy to do it in good times and in bad, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so the mindset has always been the fundamental energy for whatever our career is, sales or otherwise, to be honest with you, right? You've met people who say, I just love to do music so much that it doesn't matter if I'm making money this week or not. I know that I want to do this. And then the funny thing is they end up making plenty of money.
Sure.
Because what I've learned is that making money is quite easy, but doing good work, good for you, good for others, that's the key. That's the hard part, actually, in many cases. And I feel bad because some agents, they think that this is just a business of cranking the engine, if you will. Like, I'm just going to do the things and, make the sales and make the calls or whatever. And they lose the fire in a lot of ways. And that's unfortunate. Just from a personal standpoint, I want to be fired up every day to come to work. The tangent to that, I think, has been the last 15 to 16 months when people were suddenly told by forces greater than the usual forces, right? It wasn't a market downturn. Interest rates didn't soar. There weren't market fundamentals. We had a pandemic, right? The universe sort of said, everybody on hold.
Yeah.
And I think that created a opportunity for some soul searching. And I believe that the real estate industry is undergoing a soul searching moment. They're starting to ask as a collective, but also individually, am I doing the right work for the right reasons? And frankly, with the right people, right? So people are looking around saying, are these the people I want to be around? My peers, my clients? And also, am I part of the right conversation? So Ryan, I'll just pick up on something that I think you and I have touched on many times in our conversations. And one is that there are a lot of conversations force-fed into the real estate industry that frankly are not helpful. I'm not going to say that they do more harm than good, but they're certainly not helpful. Now, here's something I always ask people today. I say, remember what we were so worried about in the fall of 2019? Remember about, the crazy disruptors, the evil algorithms, the interlopers in our bit. Like, we were freaking out. And frankly, we were also quite mean to each other. A new competitor would come to town and they were the enemy. I mean, it was at a level of vitriol that was emotionally destabilizing for this industry. And now, like, we don't talk like that anymore, right? Notice how a pandemic actually sort of said, priorities, my friends, priorities. And you actually need all of your friends. You need all of your competitors to also be your neighbors, right? The funny thing is we all sell homes in the same neighborhood, right? There's 4 real estate agents within 30 houses of my house. And to me, it doesn't matter so much the badge on their card, but the badge on their heart that matters more than anything else. I feel as if the real estate industry as a whole, but many of the individuals I speak to now, they're just speaking differently because this soul searching that they've done has caused them to say, I don't want to talk like that anymore. I don't want to see the other person as a danger. Besides, this business is so big that in 30 years that I've been doing this, let me tell you how many people have ever cornered the business. 0. 0 people have cornered the business, whether they were the first one to have a website or the last one to have some fancy new algorithm. It's a great big business. And what we all discover is we all can be plenty successful. And there's even so much excess so much excess plenty, so much excess bounty that even more people will join the business. That's what's so magical about this. And I think what people have started to learn before the pandemic, it was just starting, but since the pandemic, that like we need to think about ourselves differently, talk about ourselves differently, talk to each other differently. And as a result, it actually has released a ton of energy. I mean, this industry is on fire, and it's not on fire because the housing market is on fire. It's on fire because I think it has new purpose, new meaning, new energy, and a new outlook. And at least the people that I are talking to, it's so inspiring to me.
Well, and let's talk about that for a second, because you don't necessarily just, mentor agents. you mentor top level executives and some of the great leaders inside of the entire industry and beyond. So you're getting a very good viewpoint from people that are leading. When you examine that, the conversation must have shifted as this pandemic has carried on from, the things that you were mentoring leaders in versus what you may have been before. Because let's face it, this is a crisis. And I know we spoke a little bit before we started recording here, but what are some of the topics of conversation with, what I consider the who's who of real estate in many cases, and the people that you get to lead?
Yeah, I'm very blessed that the conversations that I have and the clients that I have, ability to just contribute to, these leaders are people who actually are thinking at a very different level than just the typical, top 10 list, if you will, and competitor must be beat at all costs. The topics recently, and I'm going to say recently, to include the pandemic, but also before the pandemic, had already started to shift towards, imagining their businesses as having ripple effects that go way beyond the number of transactions that they do, right? So a phrase that a number of my clients love to say is that they're not just, making deals, they're making a difference, right? I mean, I talk to clients who, for them, their local impact on the community, their ecological impact, their financial impact, their ability to help people truly generate wealth and raise their standards of living are as much a driving force in how they design their compensation strategies, how they design the services that they offer, how they curate their brands, as is, the sort of traditional concepts around what it means to help people buy or sell homes. So that conversation has shifted. And it's almost, it's funny because with someone with a degree in philosophy, I always see a lot of parallels. I liken it to sort of the beginning of the Renaissance. There was a humanist movement, a movement that basically said, things need to change in a very fundamental way. And there were two schools of thought. One school of thought was, we have to take over the institutions, break the institutions, and make utopian institutions. And of course, it didn't really work so well, because that led to a lot of strife, wars. It was the Middle Ages, wasn't exactly a wonderful time. But as we entered the Renaissance, right, the reason we call the Renaissance and subsequently the Enlightenment is because another school of thought arose in which they said, what if we just, rather than trying to fix all the externalities, what if we just tried to make better people? What if we helped people be more connected to each other, be better listeners, be a little more authentic, be more patient with each other, focus more on themselves than each other, right? Not worry so much about whether someone's ahead of me or I'm ahead of someone else. So the humanist movement was about making better people who, through their work, whether they were an artist or a merchant or whatever it was in the Renaissance, but today it's the same thing. If we could each work on ourselves and say, this morning I'm going to be the kind of person who is more patient, more open, more helping, more whatever it is, and still do plenty of business. I'm not saying that you want to set aside the fact that you got to make a sale today and that you've got to, that's going to happen. But what happens is you put the cart and the horse in the right direction for a change. My sales business is a vehicle for my greater purpose, not I'll have time for greater purpose when I need a marketing shtick to differentiate from someone else. Is finally, I think the cart and the horse is getting changed. And when I think about the leaders today who are working hard in initiatives like diversity and inclusion, when I look at leaders who are working hard on wealth, when and making sure that all the boats rise with the tide, when I look at leaders who just stop fighting over compensation. And let me give you an example. One of the things I've been teaching some of my leaders lately is how to spell. So in the real estate industry, we have a word that I think we've misspelled for a long time. And the word is commission. We always talk about commissions, commissions, commissions. So I spell it a little differently than other people. I spell it CO-mission. What happens if when I'm in a transaction with someone, I'm not worried about my commission meaning what I get paid, but I worry about the co-mission that we're going on together as I help you buy or sell your home. Or from the brokerage standpoint, what if I go enter into a co-mission with my sales professionals? Not what I pay them or how much they can earn from me, but how I can help them become the best version of themselves in their life through the tools of my company, through the presence of our organization. And so co-mission is different than commission. This language that I teach some of the leaders that are out there, it's suddenly they start to say, like, I now know what I need to be doing as a leader. I now know what's really important in a business that frankly still occurs at the kitchen tables of people's lives. Like, let's not forget, everything we do happens when people's lives are changing. And that is not only a blessing, but it's also a responsibility.
How do you protect your own energy when you're dealing with all these people, all this energy? Because what I observe, and for anyone that is not following along with Matthew, follow along with his Facebook, IG, any content that he creates. He's such a positive personality, but the philosophy degree doesn't hurt anything either. Right. And so, through COVID, I've seen just so much negativity in this industry, so much, hurtful comments, and gosh, as we go through, the positions on masks, not masks, vaccines, not vaccines, that's not my place to say, but you have maintained at the most consistent level this positive energy, and it's a very worldly viewpoint as well that anybody can take in and absorb and feel good when you read and listen to your stuff. How do you stay in that space?
It's a great question. First of all, let me tell a little secret, which is I have down days. Sure. I get, please don't make me a superhero. I'm just an ordinary guy. But I will say I have had to create some tools to maintain my energy. Now, some of those things are somewhat mechanical, to tell you the truth, right? Like, I have a playlist every morning that gets my mind in a good space, and to be honest, my playlist is it's about 15 or 16 superhero movie themes. So, like, you can't start your day off bad if you've just listened to Superman, Wonder Woman, Spider-Man, Iron Man, that's going to get you going. So some of it's quite mechanical, right? Some good listening and some good reading, but some of it is from the school of hard knocks. And what I want to explain by that is simply that I had to learn to filter the world a whole lot more than I had been in the past. And this is something I teach with a lot of people that I have a chance to coach, is that we have more inputs into our brains and therefore our energy than ever before. Back when you watched the news once a day and you read one newspaper a day, you had a limited number of inputs, and quite frankly, they weren't as loud or persistent. We now not only get news and information from so many different sources, we also get inputs from complete strangers. We read comments. It's fascinating to me that we actually read comments of complete strangers and absorb all that. So totally. I actually had to suddenly realize that too much input was coming in. And it was literally overwhelming the system, right? If you overwhelm any system, too much water into a pump, you run the engine too hard in your car, and it's going to blow up. And literally, I was finding myself at points where I was not able to maintain my optimism. So I actually created a filter. I sat down one day and I basically said, listen, what are the words I want to have associated with my life? What words, what feelings, what values do I want to associate with my life? And by extension, they will become associated with my work in that case. And I wrote down 4 or 5 of them. And, then I tried to boil it down. And I eventually came to a word that, to me, literally within seconds of seeing it, this electrical connection happened. It was a word that I had tossed around almost as a cliche, but when I saw it on my list, I said, you know what? Of all the other words I'd written down, I want to be knowledgeable. I want to be fun. I want to be energetic. For me, the word was inspiring. I wanted to make sure that I was inspiring. Now, on one hand, you might think, well, that's just a marketing tool, isn't it? But actually, I put a hashtag in front of it and I upped the ante. I added the word always in front of it. So hashtag always inspiring. And it's, to me, not a marketing thing. To me, it's actually a daily filter that reminds me that first, what comes in has to go through that filter. So within one day of adopting that hashtag, I left Twitter. I deactivated my account. And I just said, when I'm on Twitter, what comes into my mind is not always inspiring, and who it tempts me to be and output is not always inspiring. It's not a space for me to be, right? And I began to curate everything. I curated the news, the things I read, the people I followed, but more importantly, it also aligned what had to come out. So when you see me post, to be honest with you, for something that I post, if it is always inspiring, you know, to be fair, there probably were 10 other things that I had to filter away, you know, take them away so that A, I let the words in my own head be positive energy. But then if I'm going to express them to others, they have to give off that optimism as well. So, you know, I actually use this process of determining my core value, if you will, to become now a guiding light for me. Now, if you get really good at it, eventually what you'll do is you'll take your keyword and you'll start to see it everywhere. In fact, for me, it became so important that I had it embedded into a phrase and tattooed on my arm. So that every day when I go wash my face, I am reminded not to give in to evil, right? Not to give in to that dark side that was so easy for me to get entrapped in and sap my energy, but instead to show up today, the kind of person I need me to be, and that frankly, my friends, my community, my family needs me to be as well.
It's interesting. I interviewed Justin Haber, who's an upcoming podcast guest. And he is, for those of you that have been hiding under a rock in Canada anyways, you know, 2,000 homes a year, #1 Remax team in Canada, I think top 5 in the world. And Justin brings a very, very humbling approach to this kind of environment as well. And his basic message is just lead and serve others. Just serve your people.
Sure.
And so where people view him, you know, from this huge transactional standpoint, it's the exact same thing. It's finding that focus as far as, you know, how to just be a better human being. And if you're serving and supporting others, whether it's, you know, his team or for you, the you know, leaders that you get to serve, well, look at the results that end up happening there.
I would only add to that, and I absolutely love that, but I would only add one tiny thing I had to learn, which was also to lead myself.
Yeah.
I could not be asked and expected to help lead others in any way or to serve others in any way if I didn't get myself in order. If I can't get my thoughts in order, and if I show up on Twitter ranting about the weather or the politics or the airline is late, or, you know, how can I possibly be asked then to contribute to someone who will have a greater ripple effect than me? I mean, let's be fair. I'm just a little guy trying to do his best, spreading some good news. But, you know, if I am coaching someone who is the head of a national franchise, if I am contributing to someone who leads an international network of brokers, you know, I have a massive responsibility not to poison the well, because the ripple effect is very great. But it meant that in order to serve others, I first had to serve myself. In order to lead others, I had to lead myself. And that was just as important, at least to me, in being able to be, to make the contribution that made a difference.
As you serve yourself and you serve others, because I believe that it's also who we attract as, you know, the type of people that we get to lead when we're doing that.
Yes.
And we go through ups and downs and all around. I mean, this has not been easy on anybody, but I think it's a huge place of realization for one's potential to lead themselves and serve themselves. And you know, that's why, like you said, good things are happening for many that are doing that. As you've done that, and as you speak to these types of clients, obviously without, you know, naming names, but what kind of questions are they asking? You know, what are they asking you to share with them about something that's going to help their people and their organization, because it's a little bit different now when you're in, I think what you referenced earlier as a crisis or a period of crisis.
The most refreshing thing about the questions that I hear today is they're so optimistic.
Mm-hmm.
I often wonder when I hear questions that start from a place of scarcity and worry, if the answer to the question is almost irrelevant. We've got to come back and ask a fundamental belief question. Do you believe the world is getting better, that things have lots of work to be done? No doubt about that, but that we're moving in the right direction. So the kinds of questions that leaders are asking me today are, how do I contribute to the optimistic, positive growth of the future? For example, how do I make it possible for my real estate professionals to live the lives they want to live, not just earn the income they want to earn, right? Like one area that's been huge is the shift from this conversation around compensation to long-term work-life balance and wealth, right? So that's been something the real estate industry has been sitting on, I think, for maybe 2 decades. There's been about 20 years of fighting over this month's revenue, where at the end of 10 or 20 years, people leave with 100% of nothing. Now I have brokers saying, how do I make sure that people who build a career with us leave with something at the end? They have a succession plan. They have some investment properties that we'll manage for them as a courtesy to their 20 years of tenure with us. I mean, it's remarkable how creative the industry is getting once it's shifted the goal. So if the goal is, how do I help my people make as much money, then I'm going to take certain actions. But the questions people are asking now is, how do I help my people be the best version of themselves they can be? How can I help them be leaders in the society, not just leaders in the industry, right? Real estate's very remarkable because major changes in our society actually come through real estate. Fair housing, for example, is a real estate issue that altered society, right? And you look all around you, when you look at wealth generation and you look at immigration and you look, whatever those aspects of our societies that are growing, real estate's in the center of it. And this sense of social consciousness has helped real estate leaders ask very important questions alongside of, how do we ensure that we, continue to grow our market share? How do we ensure to make sure that we provide a competitive and delightful service? But those are the questions you have to ask just to show up to work. Those are what I call the ante questions. Ante up. You can't be the leader of a company or even a small real estate professional by themselves without answering those questions. But then you've got to say, is there something more? And the kinds of questions that people are asking me are now ranging into the, is there something more realm? And to me, that's very exciting. It's very much one of those areas where I think the time has come for the real estate industry to play a better role in answering some of those questions.
I think that it's an absolute too, because I do believe that if that human to human connection continues to evolve, which it is, there's no doubt about it. Those that do not, I think, become open or awaken to it even a little bit, may find some challenges with their clientele, especially as technology, not necessarily totally disrupts us, but allows us to adapt and evolve as it naturally will happen.
One of the aspects of this business is that for many, many years, I think we were, I don't want to say purposely misled, but somewhat misdirected. And that is that we were told we had to be professionals at work and leave your personal life at home. And what's so funny in this business is basically, to quote the title of a book that I enjoyed, which is People by You. There's a title of a book by a gentleman named Blount. But that philosophy is kind of interesting to me because what people want more than anything else isn't just your lowest price or your fastest transaction or your coolest paperwork. What they want is time with you. They want you to walk them through what's happening, not in the sale of their home, but in their life, right? Because what happens is people buy and sell homes because their lives are changing.
Mhm.
They don't buy and sell home because of interest rates or because wood is expensive or cheap or whatever. Their lives are changing. And so that is accompanied by a real estate change in many cases, married or divorced or baby coming home from college or baby going off to college and all those wonderful things. And so people buy as much us as they buy our service set and our platform. And what's happening in real estate right now is, I think, a well-needed focus on us. What do we represent? What do we stand for? What is it that is valuable to us? And that is as attractive as anything else. You know, you yourself probably, and many people on this podcast probably have reached a point where it's not about the ad that we run that attracts business to us or friends to us. It's the works that we do. People come to us for who we are, not just because you were number 3 on the super duper unbelievable list of the year, right? Because no one sits back and says, you know, honey, I don't think we could work with number 4 because there's number 3 out there. Like, nobody thinks like that, right? What they say is, wow, I really resonate with that person who, you know, donates 5% of their time to the animal shelter, or shows up as a substitute teacher for the 5th graders, or whatever it is that they do. It doesn't matter. It's not a ranking of different charities, or even just says, I do this for these reasons. In addition to obviously having a healthy and thriving financial business, right? We want to work with people who are successful. That part has been a little bit put on hold, if you will, in the last 10 or 15 years, where marketing has been all about differentiating on our systems and tools. Now we have an opportunity not to differentiate, but just to show up and say, I'm here and here's everything I stand for. And the right people come to me and the right people come to you. And frankly, they're not even the same groups. So we're not in competition. We're both able to do good work in the same neighborhood, which is so wonderful.
I think that for leaders too, and I know that, you know, not everybody wanted to sell a couple hundred homes like I did a year. You know, I found that a lot of people, they, at first, when that's what I was all about as a real estate broker, you know, they'd suck it up like it's sugar. And then when they realized what that really meant, they'd spit it out like it's salt and they'd leave. Right. And so you do start figuring out, you know, on a leadership perspective, and that's why I follow along with people like you know, how to live a whole life. That's right. How to have a whole business, and the right people just naturally gravitate. And gosh, in listening and following along with folks like yourself, your business just feels better too. And you feel better about, you know, who you're working with, and you feel better about yourself.
Yeah, people want to know that, first of all, they matter to you and you matter to them, like equally so. But at the same time, they want to have a sense of like confidence that working with you will leave them off better than when they began. Not just financially better because you got them the most house and the most money for their house, you know. They want to know that you've been changed for the better through their time with them. You know, in our business, one of the most different things than any other industry is that we actually become close personal friends with a significant percentage of our clients, right? I can assure you that the gentleman who sells IBM mainframe systems doesn't hang out at the barbecue with the purchasing manager of the organization he sold it to, right? But our friends come to our holiday parties and our weddings and even our funerals, and they become deeply embedded in our lives. And once I started realizing that in my career, I wasn't adding clients, I was adding friends to my lifetime. That's what I was doing. It allowed me to have a very different set of conversations with them. You know, not every conversation even begins or ends with, and how much will that cost? You know, that's what you need done. This is what I can do. The rest works itself out, but it moves to a different level of importance. I mean, I've been many times when clients have said to me, Matt, this is what we need. And I've said, I can't wait to do it. I'm thrilled that you're giving me a chance to do work that is exciting, inspiring to me. And they say, well, what about the budget? And I say, just write it down. Just tell me what the budget is, because I want to do that work. And the funny thing, Ryan, is they always exceed what I probably would have charged them anyways, you know? But when you set that aside, now they say, we have this project and we knew you would love to do it. Wow, that's what I want. That's where I can do it. And then when I show up and say, oh, surprise, I can spend an extra day. They say, really? It doesn't cost anything? I said, why would I charge you to hang out with you? I love you. I love hanging out with you.
Exactly. Yeah.
So now you're playing on a way different playing field than the playing field of dialing for dollars, if you will.
So true. So true. What is up next for you, my friend, as you move into the second part of 2021 and beyond? I'd love to know what's happening next.
Well, some fun things are happening. Number one, I have to be honest, this technology change that's happened through obviously being able to engage through video has become a new channel for me, a new platform. I did a program for a group in Malta last week, South Africa 2 weeks before that. Like, I am just overwhelmed with how far this technology can help me, spread my message.
Yeah.
And at the same time, for me, it's become a channel where it's enabled me to do more good work. So I think that's going to be continuing. The other thing that's been really cool for the fall is we've set up a number of retreats. And I think people coming out of the pandemic, they want learning, they want to have some classes, but they also want to have some meaningful experiences. And so number of clients have called and said, we want to take 50, 60 people, 100 people, whatever that number is. And we want to just do a couple of days. And we don't want to even have a huge agenda. Let's write down 3 or 4 things that we want to explore and let's explore them. And a lot of what I've been doing now is beyond just like using a presentation tool. It's experiential, right? People write during my classes. We do photography together. We draw. We make a poem. We try to use the rest of our brain, if you will, to create growth for ourselves. So for me, that's the fall is so exciting to me because I'm going to visit some great events and do some great keynotes, but it's also been a chance to expand upon what I've learned in the last year, which is not only using this technology, but to take the message in new directions, in new total experiences like retreats.
Where can people find out about this and how to contact you for online, offline? Let's hear it, because I know I'm interested already.
So I'm super easy to get hold of. MatthewFerrara.com is the number one place, of course. But if you go on Facebook, of course, I think there's a business page out there, but don't check it because I haven't checked it. Just go to my personal page and just be a friend at Matthew Ferrara on Facebook there, and my Instagram is there as well. I'm easy to find, and a lot of the programs that we're doing, some are open to the universe and some are by individual groups that have asked to get together. But I'll be happy to talk about those, and just in general, just talk to anybody. I'm like I said, so happy to have been on your podcast today because I might make a new friend, and that's why I do these kinds of things. So I'm excited for that.
Always inspiring, always inspiring, and always contributing. And I thank you, my friend. It's been a blessing to have you here and then to follow along through my entire real estate career. So I thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. And I look forward to seeing what's next for you. And I think that any leader, any agent, anybody that is looking to be a little bit more inspired, looking to take their business and their lives to a little bit different level, follow along with Matthew. He is one of a kind. Everybody, thanks so much for following along with the Rise Up podcast. We continue to bring you some different folks inside of this ever-changing real estate environment. And we look forward to seeing you soon. Matthew, thank you.
My pleasure, Ryan. Thank you.